Let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard of a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Do you know that this book has sold over 37 million copies globally? It is one of the best sellers in the wealth category. But did you know that the author, Robert Kiyosaki, is a big scammer? At least 37 million people have bought his book. But how many have actually changed their financial situation because of it? Every time I open my YouTube account, I see a lot of videos about Robert Kiyosaki. Some are his ads, some are videos from his own channel, and some are re-uploads by other people. He always claims to own more than 7,000 properties. If we assume an average value of $100,000 per property, his total personal wealth would have exceeded 700 million US dollars. He always talks about the mindset that makes you rich, and he always claims he can help you achieve financial freedom. But did you know that many people call Robert Kiyosaki a big scammer? Even his Rich Dad Poor Dad company eventually went bankrupt in 2012. He's also very often wrong in his investment predictions. So many people in the investment world would consider him a joke. But why is it that Robert Kiyosaki is such a symbol, is such an iconic person in the global investment industry, yet there's a lot of people calling him scammer? My name is Devin, and my mission is to help businesses grow quickly, gain more customers, and help them acquire customers more easily and cheaply. And today we'll discuss a very interesting topic. Is Robert Kiyosaki an angel or a devil? Is he a scammer or a life-changing mentor? I'll not only tell you the truth about Robert Kiyosaki, but also how he succeeded and how we can apply his experiences in our own lives. What can we really learn from Robert Kiyosaki? If you like my video today, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell notification so you won't miss any of my other content in the future about how business works. Before talking about Robert Kiyosaki's story, I want to tell you an important business principle. In the commercial era we live in today, the secret to success is your ability to simplify complex ideas. To put it simply, if you can explain how to make an atomic bomb in a way that ordinary people can understand, even if your technical knowledge isn't that great, isn't that detailed, you can become one of the most famous and profitable people in your field. Robert Kiyosaki is an ordinary looking Japanese American who has become one of the best-selling authors in the global wealth industry. His Rich Dad Poor Dad has sold 37 million copies worldwide and topped the New York Times bestseller list for years. And the content of the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, is actually very simple. It mainly talks about Robert Kiyosaki's upbringing and the two fathers in his life. One is his biological father, the poor dad, who had high education and a high-paying government job, but was burdened with debt in old age and left a lot of debts after his death. The other one is the father of Robert Kiyosaki's good friend, who became Robert Kiyosaki's rich dad in his life. And although this rich dad did not even graduate from high school and never had a job, he became very wealthy in Hawaii in his middle age and left a lot of wealth to his family after his death. Robert Kiyosaki often talks about what ordinary people do when they have money. They would go buy a luxury car. It seems like an asset, but it's actually a liability because a car does not bring any cash flow and doesn't achieve any return. But you need to continuously invest in various maintenance, depreciation, fees, and other expenses to support the car's operation. And so he defines luxury cars as junk assets. So how should ordinary people achieve asset? So what does he define as a good asset? A good asset is an asset that not only brings in cash income but also appreciates in price over time. Robert Kiyosaki's favorite assets are properties, in addition to large company stocks and personal businesses, because these assets can bring in a lot of cash income, and their asset value continues to rise over time. It sounds like a good piece of advice, but do you find it helpful? It sounds like a good piece of advice, but people surprisingly discovered something in 2012. A newspaper at the time that reported Robert Kiyosaki, the man who claimed to be richer than a country, his Rich Dad, Poor Dad company was actually applying for bankruptcy. And overnight, Robert Kiyosaki's myth collapsed. Forbes magazine even used an entire article to criticize Robert Kiyosaki, calling him a complete fraud. Forbes said that Robert Kiyosaki's methods of making money was very impractical and absurd at best. For example, he advocated buying properties with almost zero down payment from various places. And besides, in the investment methods he taught, some were really bad and led people astray. For example, he strongly encouraged trading based on insider information. If you have done some investments, you know that in many cases, insider information is unreliable. Let me give you an example. Many people said that every time Bill Gates chose to buy or sell Microsoft stocks, the timing was wrong. Even the leaders at a company doesn't know whether its future stock price will rise or fall. So how can ordinary people get so much insider information? And another thing is that Robert Kiyosaki encouraged using some methods in property transactions that can be considered very crooked. For instance, he suggested adding a clause called subject to my partner's approval when buying a house, meaning the contract has a prerequisite that his partner needs to agree to, and only then can the contract be effective. But Robert Kiyosaki later explained that his partner was his cat. Adding such a funny clause, once the other party finds out it's fake, you might be accused of fraud. This kind of operation is very unreliable and will make the other party feel that you are very insincere when you first buy a property. Robert Kiyosaki himself often predicts the prices of some investment products. For example, in 2013 to 2014, he came to Australia for a lecture and made a round of predictions about Australia's property market, saying that Australia's property market had reached the selling point and would soon fall. He advised people to appropriately hold gold and stocks instead. However, in the following years, Australia's property market experienced a huge bull market until it calmed down in 2018 and 2019. During that period, the price of gold continued to fall. So many times, Robert Kiyosaki's predictions about house prices and stock values were mocked by many professionals as being ridiculous. They said Robert Kiyosaki was a compass on their investment road. If he said something would rise, you sell. If he said the price would drop, you would buy, and you will definitely make money. But all these are just small issues. The next problem is more serious. Robert Kiyosaki always claimed in his Rich Dad Poor Dad that he had a poor dad and a rich dad, but it turned out that even this was fake. Many people brought out evidence to prove that Rich Dad did not exist, and later Robert Kiyosaki himself admitted in an interview that the Rich Dad character was fictional, was not real. But he said, like the story of Harry Potter, not everything it has to be real. He was just trying to convey the idea in his book. And all his other information, like owning 7,000 properties and his dozens of companies operating very well, he always refused to reveal to the outside world where his properties were, where they were bought, and any evidence of these properties. He did not reveal any of that. He also never provided proof of how well his companies operated and how much money they made. When Robert Kiyosaki's company, called Rich Dad Poor Dad, was applying for bankruptcy, Robert Kiyosaki was pushed off the pedestal. What the public criticized the most was Robert Kiyosaki's way of making money. It seemed that Robert Kiyosaki is telling you how to invest in property to make money. But his way of making money is not just selling a book, it is a lot more varied. Robert Kiyosaki does various lectures worldwide, And during his lectures, he not only sells his various books, but also sells his wealth courses to his customers. And these wealth courses aren't cheap. Some of the cheaper ones are a few thousand US dollars, and the most expensive ones cost tens of thousands of dollars. And some of these most expensive courses are just staying with him for a day and enjoying a cup of coffee together. And after paying tens of thousands of dollars to join his membership, Robert Kiyosaki would also sell an opportunity to become his apprentice. And later, many students who paid him tens of thousands of dollars in student fees came out and complained about him. They said they didn't learn anything from him. And apart from selling courses, Robert Kiyosaki also developed a lot of other products as well. For example, he developed a board game called the Monopoly, which will only cost you a couple dozen dollars. But if you want to buy a Rich Dad Poor Dad cash flow game, you need to pay at least $200 to buy it. So after telling you so much, you might think, okay, Devin, you just want to make this video to criticize Robert Kiyosaki today, right? But what I want to tell you is actually quite the opposite. I'm not here to curse Robert Kiyosaki. I'm not here to say bad things about him. Explain to you what the real Robert Kiyosaki is like. At least we need to understand how Robert Kiyosaki succeeded. Whether you say he's all talk or a scammer, he did achieve a magnificent amount of wealth. So why did Robert Kiyosaki attract criticism? It is because many people who have their own views and understanding of how money works and how wealth works, especially those who really already have wealth, disdain the topics that Robert Kiyosaki talks about. For example, Robert Kiyosaki's 4-quadrant theory, which says that many of us live in the employee quadrant. But if you really want to make money, you must jump out of the employee quadrant. You either start your own business or you take your money to invest in other people's businesses and ultimately become an entrepreneur or an investor. This thinking is not wrong, but many people say that it is not as clear-cut as that. For example, I'm a worker in a company today, but I take other jobs. I have other jobs on Saturdays and Sundays. And I'm also an entrepreneur. If I also invest in a stock, a small business, or a property, I'm also an investor. So what I'm trying to say is, for many, many people, we have attributes in all 4 quadrants. But we need to think about why Kiyosaki's 4-quadrant theory is so popular globally, even though it is not 100% correct. And the reason is because too many big shots in the wealth industry or in the wealth category, people who talk about wealth and money making and businesses, they like to make their industry seem unattainable when showing their professionalism. They often use a lot of professional terms like US stock yield or PE ratio or inflation, central bank interest rate, etc., etc. And after saying these terms, they are actually distancing themselves from the ordinary people. But what Robert Kiyosaki did was the opposite. Instead, he classified all the difficulties you have encountered in wealth in terms of personal finances into just one question: your mindset. He tries to let you understand through one simple thing that all the complex problems you encounter in life can be solved through this one point, and that is correcting your thinking. And the ability for Robert Kiyosaki to simplify complex problems into simpler problems, boil down complex problems into a simple concept, is something that a lot of people lack, a lot of very successful people lack. When we stay in an industry for a long enough time, we like to talk about the complicated things in our industry. And in this process, we actually lose empathy. We lose empathy for those who don't understand our industry. It is like you already know how to drive, so you can never understand how those who can't drive. Many of them don't even know what a steering wheel is. And a second point why Robert Kiyosaki is so successful and so good is he's very good at telling stories. A simple story like Rich Dad Poor Dad allows people to understand the principle themselves. But many people might say, "Oh, Robert Kiyosaki, you've gone too far. Why did you make up a story like Rich Dad Poor Dad?" But I can very much relate to this. My parents, my parents divorced when I was very young. So for a very long period of time of my life, I lived with my father. For the rest of the time, I lived with my mother. But in my father's value system, he believed making money is shameful. It is shameful to talk about money. But my mother, on the other hand, believed the otherwise. He believed that making money is something we should all talk about, and we should all talk about. And she believed making money is a good thing. Money is a good thing. If we worked hard enough, we can make money. So, so at a very young age, I received two very different two very different education about wealth. I personally really don't like some of my father's standings, but for someone who came from a more complete family, you might not understand why someone would not like their parents' ideas. But what I wanted to tell you is that what your parents tell you isn't completely correct. And through telling a story, Robert Kiyosaki was able to let his audience stand his points, accept his points more easily. And that is another awesome part of Robert Kiyosaki. That is another reason why Robert Kiyosaki is so successful. And the last point I would like to share with you why Robert Kiyosaki was so successful is his ability to empathize. I personally have been doing e-commerce for a couple of years now, and I have seen and helped other businesses succeed in the process. And in a lot of business owners, what I saw is their inconfidence. They're not confident in their ability to serve their customers. They're not confident in their ability to share with their customers the ideas that they have. They're always worried about the fact that they are not qualified enough. They are worried that because they are not a PhD or they don't hold any kind of certificate, they cannot help their customers. They are worried that people are not receptive of their ideas. And there are other people who are worried that the services and products they provide cannot be well accepted by people who hold a different view than themselves. And I've seen so many people who believe and worry about that their product is not the best in the market. But what I want to share with you, what I want to tell you is that none of that matters. When Robert Kiyosaki was spreading his ideas, when Robert Kiyosaki was spreading his thinking, he did not overemphasize his qualifications. He did not speak from the perspective of a professional, but instead he put all the weight on his customers, on people who care about personal finances and wealth generation, what their pain points are, what are the goals they're trying to achieve. Why do people care about personal finances, and why do people want to make more money? And once you do a little bit of research and once you talk to people, you will realize that people who care about finance, personal finance, and wealth generation, they share some of the same pain points. They're not satisfied with their current status quo. They want to give a better living condition to their family. They want their family to have they want to spend more time with their family and less time on work. And in general, just giving their family and giving their own life an uplift in living conditions. And Robert Kiyosaki was able to put all the pain points in a character like his poor dad, his biological dad, and give people a feeling that they are seeing themselves in a mirror. And then Robert Kiyosaki put people's the future self that people want to achieve for themselves, like for example, getting respect from other people, giving their family a better living condition. They would put all the ambitions and aspirations into a character like the rich dad. And by comparing the two characters, Robert Kiyosaki was able to show their customers, was able to show his readers the ordeals that they are in now compared with the future place that they want to go. They do want to go. And by doing this, he gave his readers a strong sense of directionality. A lot of people would say that the points mentioned in Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad are things that they already know. For instance, they would say that everybody knows they have to invest in some financial assets. Everybody knows that they can't buy a luxury car when they can't afford to. Everybody knows that don't buy an expensive real estate to live in, expensive piece of real estate to live in, because these are liabilities. However, what I want you to know is different people. There's a lot of people in this world, and different people are in different stages in life, and different people have different statuses. Different people have different points in their knowledge journey, and but what you think is a very simple and quite intuitive piece of knowledge could be life-changing for another person. There's a lot of demand in this world that aren't fulfilled. People say, okay, I don't know what my customers want. I've talked to a lot of small business owners, and they keep telling me they don't know what their customers want. They don't know how to get customers. But what I always tell them is, you are overcomplicating things. There's a lot of demand in this world that aren't being fulfilled. And what I keep telling them is that their products are valuable, their services are valuable. I think knowing Robert Kiyosaki is my honor. I have a friend who lived in Australia, and she specialized in selling scented candles. And she told me that a lot of small business owners, they are trying to go online. They're trying to turn themselves into an e-commerce. They told me one of the biggest pain points they have is they don't know how to find a reliable supplier, a reliable manufacturer for their product ideas. So what I have done today is I have offered you a free guide on how to find a reliable supplier, how to find a reliable manufacturer for your product idea. I'll put the link to download this guide in the description box below. Also, in the future, I'm also going to do an interview with this friend of mine, and I would ask her questions about why she started this business, this e-commerce business, selling home fragrances and scented candles, and some of the difficulties that she had encountered doing so. And I believe these difficulties are shared amongst a lot of the small business owners, either in Australia or in the United States or somewhere else. In the past, I have helped small businesses owners win customers more easily and cheaply. And in the future, I want to help more small business owners achieve that. And apart from that, I'm also going to tell how they can do one thing and one thing only to definitively improve their sales and improve their business and bringing more customers and increasing their willingness to purchase your products or services. Also, if you would like to book a call with me to discuss about what value I can provide to your business, in the call, I will tell you how you can do just one thing and one thing only to acquire customers more easily and more cheaply. One of the biggest pain points is that small business owners have very good products, they have very good services, but they don't know how to acquire customers. They believe that just by having good products and services that people will be flocking through the door, and that is often not the case. What I'm going to tell you, if you are to book a call with me to discuss, I'm going to let you know how you can acquire more customers and convert them into paying customers, indeed much cheaper than you think. If you would like to book a call with me, click the link in the description box down below and we'll be in touch. I'll see you in my next video.